I'm an urban explorer, or at least that's what I call myself. Mostly I poke around old buildings, abandoned factories and forgotten corners of the city, filming it all for my tiny YouTube channel. It's not about the views, barely get any of those, but the thrill of stepping into places time's left behind. There's something about the quiet of a place no one's touched in years, the way dust hangs in the air like it's guarding secrets. I've explored crumbling asylums, shuttered schools, even an old theatre with velvet seats rotting under decades of neglect. But last month, I found something that's made me question whether I'll ever step foot in another abandoned place. Again, I need to write this down if only to make sense of it, though I'm not sure that's possible. It started with a tip from a viewer, some guy named Lost Places 42 in my comments section. He mentioned a place called the Haverford Textile Mill, about an hour's drive from my city, tucked in a nowhere town that barely shows up on maps. Said it was abandoned in the 70s after a fire, left to rot, and barely anyone local even talks about it. Perfect, I thought. Untouched sites are rare, and the idea of capturing a place frozen in time, with looms and spools still scattered around, was too good to pass up. I did some digging, old newspaper archives, a few grainy photos, online, but there wasn't much, just a brief mention of the fire, no casualties reported, and the mill closing for good. I figured the lack of info meant it was ripe for discovery. The drive out was uneventful, just me, my camera, a flashlight, and a backpack with water and snacks. The town was as depressing as expected, a main street with half the storefronts boarded up, a gas station that looked like it hadn't pumped fuel since Reagan was president. The mill was a few miles out, down a cracked asphalt road that turned to gravel and then to dirt. By the time I parked at the edge of the property, the October sky was a dull grey, the kind that makes everything feel heavier. The mill loomed. Ahead, a hulking brick structure with broken windows like empty eye sockets. Vines had claimed parts of the walls, curling into cracks like veins. The air smelled of wet leaves and something faintly acrid, like old chemicals left to fester. It wasn't welcoming, but I've seen worse. I slung my camera over my shoulder, checked the battery, full charge, and started filming an intro. "Hey, explorers," I said, panning across the mill's facade. "Today we're at the Haverford Textile Mill, abandoned since the 70s. After a mysterious fire, let's see what secrets this place is hiding." My usual cheesy spiel. The wind picked up, rustling the overgrown weeds around the perimeter, and I noticed how quiet it was otherwise. No birds, no distant hum of traffic. Just the wind and my own footsteps crunching on gravel. The main entrance was boarded up, but one of the side doors hung off its hinges, just enough for me to slip through. Inside, the air was thick with that musty, stale smell of decay. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, revealing a cavernous space filled with rusted machinery. Massive looms stood like silent giants, their metal frames tangled with threads that had long since turned to dust. Spools and bobbins were scattered across the concrete floor, some crushed under fallen beams. I narrated as I went, keeping my voice low. It felt wrong to be too loud here. "This place is a time capsule," I whispered to the camera. "You can almost feel the workers still here, right?" But something was off from the start. The silence was too complete, like the building was holding its breath. My footsteps echoed too sharply, and the air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I chalked it up to the atmosphere of the place. Old buildings have a way of messing with your head. I moved deeper, filming the usual stuff, graffiti on the walls, surprisingly little, a pile of moldy fabric in a corner, a broken chair that looked like it had been flung across the room. My camera's autofocus started acting up, hunting back and forth, even in the steady beam of my flashlight. I muttered a curse, tapped the lens and kept going. Probably just the dust, I thought. I found a stairwell leading to the upper floors, its metal steps rusted but intact. The second floor was offices, or what was left of them. Desks were overturned, papers scattered like leaves, their ink faded to illegibility. I panned the camera across a row of filing cabinets, their drawers yanked open, spilling more papers. That's when I noticed the first really weird thing. A calendar on the wall, stuck on October 1973. The fire was supposed to have happened that month, but the calendar was pristine, no yellowing, no dust, like someone had pinned it up yesterday. I zoomed in, narrating, "Okay, this is creepy. This calendar looks brand new, but it's from the year the mill burned. What's the deal?" The camera's screen flickered as I filmed it, a quick burst of static that made me jump. I checked the display, still recording, but the footage was grainy, with weird, shifting patches of color that didn't match what I was seeing. I switched the camera off and on, which seemed to fix it for the moment. "Tech gremlins," I muttered, trying to laugh it off, but my stomach was starting to knot. Something about that calendar didn't sit right. It wasn't just clean, it felt deliberate, like it was meant to be noticed. I kept exploring, moving down a hallway lined with small offices. The doors were mostly ajar, revealing more chaos, shattered glass, overturned furniture, and that same oppressive silence. At the end of the hall, I found a door that was different. It was heavy, made of metal, and unlike the others, it was shut tight. A faded sign read, "Records Room." My YouTuber brain lit up. Records could mean old ledgers, maybe even something about the fire. I pushed the door, expecting resistance, but it swung open smoothly, almost eagerly. Inside was a small, windowless room. Metal shelves lined the walls, packed with boxes of papers, but unlike the rest of the mill, this room was tidy. The boxes were neatly stacked, no dust on them, no signs of the decay that coated everything else. In the center of the room was a single wooden table, and on it a leather-bound book. Not a ledger, not a file, but something that looked personal, like a journal. My heart was pounding now, though I couldn't say why. I set the camera on the table, angling it to capture the book as I opened it. The pages were brittle, but the handwriting inside was clear, almost elegant in black ink. The first entry I read was dated October 15, 1973, the day before the fire, according to the archives. It said, "The weave is restless tonight. It hums through the threads, through the walls." The workers don't notice, but I do. I've always felt it. It's stronger now, hungrier. We've given it cloth, given it time, but it wants more. It wants us. Tomorrow, we'll offer the final piece. The weave will bind us and will be part of its pattern forever. Blessed be the weave. A chill ran down my spine. The weave? What the hell was that? Some kind of cult thing? I flipped a few pages back, scanning earlier entries. They were vaguer, but no less unsettling. Talk of feeding the looms, patterns that move in the dark, and the mill's heart beating louder. One entry mentioned a worker who tried to leave, only to return to the weave after a night of screaming. My hands were shaking as I turned the pages, my voice barely a whisper as I read bits aloud for the camera. This is some kind of ritual stuff, right? What were they doing here? The camera's screen flickered again, worse this time. The image of the book warped, the text on the screen twisting into unreadable shapes, like threads unraveling and reweaving themselves. The audio, when I checked later, was a mess. a low, rhythmic thumping like a heartbeat layered with a faint, high-pitched whine I hadn't heard in the moment. I slammed the book shut, my breath coming fast. "Okay, this is too weird," I said, mostly to myself. "I need to get out of here," but as I grabbed the camera, I heard it. A sound from the main factory floor below, faint but unmistakable. A slow, deliberate creak, like the groan of an old loom starting up. My blood froze. I'd been in enough abandoned places to know that buildings settle, pipes groan, but this was different. It had a rhythm, a purpose. Creak, pause, creak, like something massive was stirring. I stuffed the journal in my backpack, proof, I thought, though of what I wasn't sure, and bolted for the door. The hallway felt longer now, the shadows deeper, my flashlight beam weaker, flickering like it was running out of juice despite being fully charged. The creaking grew louder, joined by a new sound, a soft, rustling whisper, like fabric sliding over fabric, coming from everywhere and nowhere. My camera was still recording, but the screen was useless now, just a mess of static and distorted shapes. I kept it running anyway, hoping it might catch something. Back on the main floor, the looms looked wrong. In the dim light, they seemed taller, their frames almost organic, like they were breathing. The threads dangling from them swayed slightly, though there was no breeze. I told myself it was my imagination, the journal messing with my head, but the air was thick now, heavy with that acrid chemical smell, stronger than before. I could feel eyes on me, not from any one direction, but from the building itself, like the walls were watching. I was halfway to the exit when I saw it. In the corner of the factory floor, where a pile of old fabric had been earlier, something moved. It wasn't a person, not exactly. It was a shape, humanoid but wrong. Its limbs, too long, its body draped in tattered cloth that seemed to writhe like it was part of it. It didn't walk, it glided, the fabric trailing behind it like a living thing, merging with the shadows. My flashlight caught its face for a split second. No eyes, just a smooth expanse of cloth stretched tight, with faint, shifting patterns. That looked like faces screaming. I screamed too, a raw, involuntary sound, and ran. The rustling was everywhere now, loud, like 1,000 bolts of fabric being torn apart. My camera was still in my hand, but the screen was dead, just a black void with occasional flashes of those writhing patterns. The exit was so close, the broken door just ahead, but the air felt like it was fighting me, thick and resistant, like wading through molasses. Behind me, the shape was gaining, its rustling now a deafening roar in my ears, mixed with whispers that weren't words, but felt like they were trying to crawl into my skull. I burst through the door into the cold October air, stumbling into the weeds. The rustling stopped abruptly like a switch had been flipped. I didn't look back. I sprinted to my car, fumbling with my keys, and peeled out of there, tires kicking up dirt. I drove for an hour, heart hammering, checking my rearview mirror every few seconds, half expecting to see that thing gliding down the road behind me. When I got home, I locked every door and window, then checked the camera. The footage was a nightmare. Most of it was corrupted, just static and digital noise, but in the few clear moments, I saw things that weren't there when I was filming. Shapes moving in the background, threads stretching across the frame like spiderwebs, and once, just for a frame, that eyeless cloth face staring straight into the lens. The audio was worse, a constant thumping heartbeat, overlaid with whispers that sounded like, "Join the weave." The journal was still in my backpack, but when I opened it, half the pages were blank, the ink gone like it had never been there. I haven't slept right since. Every creak in my apartment makes me jump. Sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear that rustling, like fabric brushing against itself, coming from my closet or under my bed. I burned the journal, but I can still see those words. The weave will bind us. What was it? Some kind of entity tied to the mill feeding on the workers. Did they summon it, or was it always there waiting? And why did it let me go? I keep thinking about that calendar pinned up like a marker and the way the building felt alive, watching me. I haven't gone back to the mill and I've stopped exploring altogether. My channel's been silent. I can't even look at my camera without feeling sick. But the worst part is the feeling that I brought something back with me. Last night, I found a single thread, thin and black, caught in the seam of my backpack. It wasn't there before. When I tried to pull it out, it wouldn't budge, like it was stitched into the fabric or growing from it.